Welcome to the Rutgers Community Living Education Project's Byte Size Lunch Series, Making Assistive Technology Work for You. The series is being provided in collaboration with the Richard West Assistive Technology Advocacy Center at Disability Rights, New Jersey. Today's topic, Assistive Technology Supports for People Who Are Deaf or Hard of Hearing, is part 6 of a year-long series. The Rutgers Community Living Education Project, also known as CLEP, is a program through the Rutgers School of Public Health. The CLEP team can serve as a bridge for self-advocates or families who have a loved one who's ready to explore community residential options. CLEP is committed to providing individual guidance, mentoring, and education surrounding community living resources for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. To assure the highest sound quality possible, all attendees will be muted during today's event. We like to keep things interactive, so to ask a question to the presenter or host, please use your Q&A option on your screen. If you would like to be unmuted to ask your question live, please send a message using the chat feature, and we will make sure to unmute your microphone during your turn. Topic-specific questions will be addressed as long as time allows, and for your consideration, we will make every attempt to get to any questions that weren't answered during the live session. At this time, I would like to welcome today's presenters, Mike Murata and Naomi Leibowitz. Welcome.
Thanks, Melanie. Good to see you again. Good to see everybody. Hello, hello. We are excited to be here with you. I didn't even realize until I saw the slide, this was number 6 already of this series. Wow, that's awesome. We're very excited to be here with all of you today. It's great to see we have a nice sized group to join the conversation today. As we go through our discussion, we have this ability for you to get the slides if you would like them. The slides have some resources in them that we'll talk about. And then I know as we went through and put them together, if you look in the chat, Naomi just dropped the link to the slides in the chat. When we went and put these slides together, we added some resources in. So maybe pictures might link to a website, maybe there's a video link, things like that. So you're going to want to have the slides for reference after we're done today. You can also take a picture of that little QR code on the bottom left corner there, and that will also take you to the slides. And so you'll have access to these. No need to worry about printing them to have access to them. We won't take them down. So you'll have access to them even after today and for the foreseeable future. As I usually say, you'll have access to them as long as Google doesn't start charging for the Google Drive documents we have. As long as they're free, then you'll have access to it too. As Melanie said, we would love for you to share during this. I know a lot of times webinars tend to be kind of one way, us to you. But we would like this to be a little bit more of a conversation if possible. And so, as Melanie mentioned, your microphones are off right now. That doesn't mean they have to stay off. If you would like to participate, just put a little note in the chat that you'd like to have your microphone turned on, and Melanie will do some behind the scenes magic and your microphone will pop on. And then we'll have a chance for you to join the conversation. If you'd like to use the chat to join the conversation, you can write it there. If you'd like to use the Q&A part, you can write it there too. Between Naomi and myself, I'm confident we will see whatever you put in, wherever you put it in. And we'll do our best to answer. Well, I'll always give that one caveat that we don't know everything. I know it's just unfathomable right now. It's very, very much possible. We don't know everything, but we will do our best to answer your questions. And if we don't know your answer, we will give you our world famous response. We don't know, but we will look that up and we will get back to you on it. And so we'll look at things that way. I think that's a really good kind of catch-all as we think about assistive technology in general, because there's so much to it to support people with disabilities that you can't know everything. And so we'll give you little bits today. And I think that's a really great way. I love that this series is Tech Bites. I think that's such a great way to approach it. Little resources. So we'll share some things that you might want to consider when you're looking for supports for individuals who are deaf or hard of hearing. And then also we'll have some time. We'll do some scenarios at the end and ask you for your suggestions of what we might do to help that person. We'll ask you if you have some situations that you'd like to share. we'll go from there, and we like to shoot for about 45 minutes, and sometimes a little longer, sometimes right about that 45, just to give you a sense of how we move along with this. Richard, I see you in the chat. Welcome. Yeah, I had the same thing. The updating Zoom. Yeah, I know. It does catch you off guard, doesn't it? When you're expecting to roll in right at the time, and then it says, "Good news, there's an update." I have to admit, I got lucky. Naomi emailed me 10 minutes before we started, and she said, "Hey, heads up, Zoom wants to update before you log in." So I actually was able to do that also. So yeah. Yeah, it's true. It only wants to update when you're at like 11:59 for a 12 o'clock webinar. So that's just the way it's going to be, right? But I'm glad we're all here, and we are recording. So if you missed the beginning, you haven't missed any content yet if you're already here, but you can certainly go back and hear our welcomes again if you'd like. As Melanie said, we are from the Richard West Assistive Technology Advocacy Center. So with Naomi and I both here, you are now experiencing the entirety of our staff. It is the two of us. And we are tasked through the federal government with being the Assistive Technology Center for New Jersey. So every state and every territory has an Assistive Technology Act project. We are that project for New Jersey. We provide supports for individuals across New Jersey, regardless of disability, regardless of age, regardless of location of where they're looking to use technology. Our purpose is to provide resources and information to make sure people understand what assistive technology is, how it could benefit them, and where to get it. One of the things we don't do is buy technology for people. So if we had one caveat of what we don't do, that is not in our mandate under our federal funds, but we provide people the information to then go forward and perhaps identify a funding source that could help them, that they would be eligible for as they move forward. And so you'll see on the slide, we have 3 core services that we do, which is device demonstration. So an individual reaches out to us and says, "I'm having difficulty doing this. What's out there?" We can show them different technology, compare the features of each, and try to help them come up with an answer to what technology might meet my needs. And that's called a demonstration. We also support a loan center. So anyone in New Jersey can reach out to our loan center. You can get to them from our website. We do that in partnership with Advancing Opportunities, and you can borrow equipment. So if there's something that you're interested in trying before you then go and purchase it, you can do that there. You can borrow things for 3 weeks at a time. If no one's waiting, you can borrow it for 6. And then finally, we have a device reuse project that we support through Goodwill Home Medical, which is down in Camden County, where they collect durable medical equipment, clean it, sterilize it, fix it if it needs it, and then put it back out into the community for a considerably reduced rate. And I see Naomi again, the master of the chat box, dropping stuff in there. She's giving you all the information for our partners that do those services. And so that's really a powerful way we make sure that people get access to tech, whether it's to borrow, to try, or to get it because they need it for something for a longer term. So those are the things that we do. You can check everything out on our website, which is AT4NJ, the number 4. at4nj.org is our website, and you can find out all the stuff we do. If you like the idea of this small little lunch series, here's some of the remaining ones that we have. So these happen once a month, the beginning of the month, and we have a few more coming up all the way into next year. And so there is a link to register, and I'm going to drop the link in. I can do this because I have the slides open right here. There is the registration link. It's the same one that you used to get to this one today. I believe you were able to pull them down to different choices if you liked. Hopefully you will join us for some future ones. If you want to listen to the sounds of Naomi and I talk even more, you can join us for a couple other events that we do, one on a weekly basis, one on a monthly basis. We host through our center an Assistive Technology Town Hall every Monday at noon. And that is a Zoom-based meeting like this. And people from across the country get together to talk about assistive technology and answer questions and brainstorm solutions with each other. Really pretty fun. where it's just a conversation. No real topics, no real plan, just chatting. And then also we host on the third Wednesday of every month at noon Eastern, we host the Maker Roundtable. So that is for people who work in the field of AT who are working to design specialized supports for individuals. A lot of times it might be 3D printed materials or some creation that they're using different products together in some unique way to solve a problem that someone is having. So it's where we can come together and kind of engineer and brainstorm things as a community that people might need. And so that happens on that third Wednesday of every month. Those links are there. Naomi's put them in the chat. They also live on our website if you want to get them there as well. All right, one more thing, I promise, and then we're going to start. I like to get all these out because I feel like we have a bit of a captive audience. I'm like, oh, this is good. We have so many good things to share. And again, all of this stuff lives on our website. So please, if nothing else, if you don't want to copy down the 15 links that we're sending you and the scanning all the codes that we have on the slides, everything lives on our website. But this also, one other thing, if you like this idea of learning through a webinar and you're here, so maybe you do, we have partnered with an international organization called ATIA, the Assistive Technology Industry Association. And our center has purchased access to their recorded library of webinars. So now anyone in New Jersey, individual with a disability, family member, professional, whether you live or work in New Jersey. So I'm going to even broaden that a little bit. If you live in another state but work here in New Jersey, that's also good. That counts. Every recorded webinar in that ATIA Learning Center is available to you free of charge, which is really exciting to get kind of this wealth of knowledge. And I think about this idea of what we're doing with these tech bites. Right? These are snapshots of an area of focus, but maybe you want to go deeper. Maybe the things we talk about today pique your interest and you say, well, I want to learn more about technology for people who are deaf or hard of hearing. You can visit the ATIA Learning Center and there's an entire catalog of resources that are recorded that you can watch that are about this topic. And so all of those will be free. If you follow that link to our website, it will take you to a form, which is shown to you on the left-hand side of the slide, just a screenshot of the form. We just ask you to fill it out. We need that just to prove that people live in New Jersey. We're certainly not going to come hunt you down at your house, but we like to have documentation to show because we are using our federal funds for this, and our funds are designated to be used for people in New Jersey. So we have to verify that you're from New Jersey. And once we do that through the form, through you filling out the form, we'll give you the code. And then you can visit their website and you can add any webinar you want into your cart. And when you get to the checkout, you just drop the code in and your total will be 0. If your total is not 0, because we have had people do this, if your total does not come to 0, don't pay for it. Reach out to us and let us know and we'll figure out why it didn't come to 0. Sometimes there's other things there. I know someone last year tried to sign up for the conference with the code and that didn't work. And then they ended up getting billed for the conference to come to the live conference. So if it doesn't come down to 0, reach out to us first, Naomi or myself, and we'll figure it out with you before you put your credit card in there. So it should be free. So that's really exciting. All right, let's talk about our topic for today. So we're talking about today, technology supports for individuals who are deaf or hard of hearing. And again, this is similar to our discussion last month that Naomi led, which was fantastic. Looking at technology for people with visual impairments, same kind of idea. This is a very broad area of need. We have a lot of individuals that we're working with that might fall on the spectrum of needing supports in this area. And we just look at some of these percentages on some of these examples here of people at risk for hearing loss, the numbers of people with hearing loss. This idea, this is an area of big focus, and there's really great strategies that we can put in place that are simple, that are readily available to support individuals as we go forward. There are also very customized solutions, obviously, and that's, I think that's the nature of our field of assistive technology. We have a range of tools, both from low to high tech, simple to complex, inexpensive to expensive. I think we have all of those ranges here. And so the trick, as with any area of technology, and I almost hate calling it a trick, it is a strategy of how to approach it, is thinking about what you need and then searching out the tool. And I believe we've shared the SET framework many times in these Tech Byte webinars. And it is kind of a guiding principle of how we approach looking at technology for individuals with disabilities. And that is this framework, which is developed by Joy Zabala, which talks about the idea, and this SET framework is SETT. Joy, when she put this together originally, the S stood for students because she was working in an educational setting. We have modified it slightly and changed that S to someone, because now we're looking at this broader. We're looking at this idea of the person we're working with that needs a support. It could be a child, an adult, whatever, doesn't matter, that person. So when we think about the SET framework process, the idea of the SET is you focus first on the person. What is that person's skills, abilities, likes, dislikes, technology experience, technology comfort level, those kinds of things they've tried in the past, really getting a sense of who that person is. Then you look at the environments they're going to use their technology in. Where are they using their tools? Is it home? Is it in the community? Is it at school? Is it at work? What's happening in that environment that could help or potentially hinder access? And so we look at that under the E for the environments. Then we focus on the T, the first T, which is tasks. What does the person need to do? We can't find a technology solution until we understand what we're trying to solve. And this kind of gets to the core of the SET framework and why it's so powerful, because you'll notice, and on the slide, there are the 4 columns, the SETT. The last T is tools. We don't look at the tools till the end, yet how many times do people start? I'm going to talk about the stuff first, the tools, then I'm going to figure out a way to have that work for someone. And that's backwards, because then what we get is technology that's not matched to a person. It's technology I had, and I like to compare it to, I'm going to round peg it in a square hole. I'm just going to use this tool and hopefully it works for you because it's the one I want to use. And that's the wrong way to look at things. If we do this process correctly, the idea of finding a tool, which for a lot of people feels very daunting, like I can't do that. I don't know assistive technology tools. And my comment to that always is that it's one of the worst kept secrets in AT. You don't need to know the tools. I don't know all the tools. Naomi doesn't know all the tools. We know some of the tools just by the nature of what we do every day, but we don't know every tool. But what we do know is a process of how to figure out what a person needs and then go to Google and just search for tools, because now I'll know what the features have to include in order to meet the needs of the person I'm working with. And so that tool searching, or that tool shopping, if you will, becomes very easy because we've done this process. And I think this process works for anyone of any age, of any disability, in any area of need, because it's really person-centered, it's person-focused. What is the person doing? Where are they doing it? What do they have to do? Those 3 things, and then the technology. And so I think that becomes really important. And so a lot of times people will ask us, what is, oh, sorry, I clicked on the button. Give me a second. I couldn't run my own slides. I apologize. Here we go. A lot of times people will ask us, what's the best tool? And the answer to that is it depends. The best tool is the one that works for you. That's the best tool. Because the other ones, then they're not so good because they're not what you need. They're not matched to what you need. And so as we go through and we start chatting a little bit about some of these features and tools, we'll always start where we have to start, which is, what do you have already? And can you use that to meet your needs? And so if you have a smartphone or a tablet, you have an array of supports already built into that that can be a support for an individual who's deaf or hard of hearing. These are just built-in features. There's nothing super, I would say, fancy about these. The idea of using video conferencing that's built into your device, so FaceTime instead of using the phone, so that you have a visual to go with it. Is texting an option? Looking at some of those supports that are built in that will give you visual alerts to when something happens. So when there's a noise in the environment, you can turn your phone feature on, and then you can get visual alerts to that. Captions, volume controls, an ability to amplify ambient sound. So perhaps just a simple amplification support might work, all the way to taking your smart device and having it connected in through your hearing aid support to give you that level of support. All of these features are built in. If you have not done this yet, I would encourage you, go through your phone or your tablet and go to the accessibility features and just scroll around a little. We also did one of our sessions on accessibility features, so you can certainly go back to that as well. And so thinking about that as a way to start a person on this journey of technology supports. And then we see things that start to be a little bit more evolved, but yet still built in. If you have an iPhone and you recently updated it, because the update was pushed out recently for iOS 16, you got a new feature on your iPhone. You now have something called live captions. It is a beta version. So if you're not familiar with that lingo, that means that it is a work in progress. And I would imagine as you see updates to your phone over the next couple months, you might see that beta disappear because maybe they add patches to it and fix it. But what does that do? Live captions does the same thing that captions are doing right now in Zoom if you have them on. It's listening for sound and giving you text on the screen. The little animated picture that's on the screen right here is showing a lady speaking through FaceTime, and the captions are coming up on the screen immediately as she's speaking. And so this idea, you can turn that on. That feature is now built into your iPhone. If you have an Android phone, as long as your Android phone runs Android version 10 or above, and so that might be something you need to check. Not every phone runs the same version of Android. But if your phone runs Android 10 or above, you also have this feature. Same idea. You simply turn it on, and anything that is producing sound from your device will automatically get captions there. If you want to look at things beyond your phones, well, we're in Zoom now. Zoom has the auto captions with the transcript. So do all the other platforms for video conferencing. And so know as you go through this, any of these scenarios that you find yourself in for a video conference, you have access to this. And if you don't have that access right away, perhaps it means that the person running your meeting didn't turn it on, and you might have to request it. And that becomes a best practice that we just continue to request that until people get the idea that, oh, I need to turn that on. Before you all came in the room today, the last thing Melanie said before I'm going to let people in is, let me turn the captions on. It becomes part of the process. It is your practice that you do to ensure that people have the accessibility they need. And again, it's in Zoom, it's in Microsoft Teams, it's in Google Meet. One of the even more powerful features that I personally really like in Teams and Google Meet is that those captions will identify who is speaking at any given time, because when you're logged into it, it sees who you are and it puts your name and your icon next to it, which I find to be very powerful. And maybe we'll see that in Zoom soon, I hope, because that to me is a really important feature of, if I'm focusing on the captions and I perhaps want to ask a question, I want to know who it was that was saying that. Or I want to know who to address as I'm going to then speak next. And so I think those features are really important. And I think, like any other feature that gets built into tools, you'll see these companies start to look at what the other does, and then you'll see these features start to find their way to other platforms. And I think that's a really important thing to know, is like, if it's here one day, just wait a minute, you might see it in another product soon. And so I'm hoping that maybe we see that in Zoom pretty soon, because I think that's really important. Live captions, again, they are everywhere. You can have them in your browser, whether you're in the Chrome browser. So right now I'm in the Chrome browser, I could turn that on, and any piece of audio that starts playing would automatically bring me a box up with captions. So again, these are tricky. You need to make sure you're using the Chrome version 89 or above. And so if you're using a personal Google account, like I am right now, that's just a issue of you making sure you've updated. And it's funny because I'm looking at the corner of my screen right now and it says update right there. It's not red yet, so maybe I'll just update when I get a chance. But you have to make sure your version of Chrome is updated to at least version 89. If you're in a managed situation, you work in a school or you work in an organization where your Google account comes through your organization, you have less control of when you do updates. In fact, sorry, I'm going to tell you, you don't have any control when you do updates. Updates are done for you and sent to you. And so you might have to request that from your administrator of your network. If you use the Edge browser, which is Microsoft's browser, that also has captions built into it, live captions. So you can go in and simply turn that feature on. Same experience. Anytime audio starts to play in a browser window, a box will pop up with your captions there, so you can have them. And then finally, one more, live captions, because I hope you're getting the impression they are everywhere. And that is a really important thing that we're starting to see, that these features have been built into everything now. If you're doing presentations, you can turn on live captions. I don't have them on now because Zoom has captions, but if you wanted to see what they look like, I'm in Google Slides right now, and I'm going to toggle on my captions. And so now my captions are listening, or my microphone is listening for me and dropping my captions into the presentation. So if you are not in a web conference like Zoom, but if you're just simply presenting information to a group on a screen through a projector, this is another best practice. Just simply turn this on. It's built in to your Google Slides or your Microsoft PowerPoint. And Richard commented, it's a bit desynced. And I agree. And I like that word, Richard, desynced. It is. It has to find, it takes it a second to listen to what I said and process it before it puts the sound up there. All right, before it listen to my sound before it puts the text up there. Sorry. And so that will take a second, but you'll see as it goes, it's relatively seamless. And because I'm in a very quiet room right now, I'm the only one home. And so it's just me in my office with a pretty good microphone. Now I have pretty accurate captions. Are they perfect? No, they are far from it. In fact, you start to recognize when you do this a lot, like I do a lot of presentations about assistive technology. I've come to know that when I use these built-in captions on my devices, don't say AT as an abbreviation for assistive technology, because it will never write AT. And you're not seeing it at the top of the screen. If you're not seeing it at the top of the screen, one time it just said 80, and the other time right now it said AT, like TEA, like having tea as a drink. It can't figure out what I'm trying to say there. And so those become things that I know if I'm in a presentation, even if my screen, even if my slide and the pictures and the text on my slide say AT, I will tend to say assistive technology because I know it will get it right. And because they are live captions and it is working the best it can under the situation you are in, and I don't have an ability to change that, I can't go in and say to it, hey, when you hear 80, what I really, when you're when I say AT and you think I've said 80, I haven't. I've said the letter AT as an abbreviation. And so I don't have that ability to change that in the live captions. My hope is it will continue to get better. It will continue to get more powerful. It will continue to process people's voices and give us better recognition. And I would think it will become faster, which will lead it away from Richard's comment of being desynced or taking a bit of a delay before it processes that text and puts it up on the screen. But again, as a process for using these tools, these are good first steps for accessibility. Is a built-in live caption the best option? Of course not. The best option would be someone captioning my live presentation. That would be better. Someone who is trained in this, who makes sure they understand the process of how to do that and are listening to the things I said. A person doing this transcription would not make the mistake of AT, and they would not write 80 because they would understand the context of what I was talking about. And so I think that's really important. So these things are certainly not meant to be a replacement for the supports that we have, but they are really good best practices to start people down a road to accessibility. And I think that's really important. And it can't be, we can't say it enough. And that modeling of it becomes so critical. I was telling Melanie and Naomi that, well, Naomi knew, but I was telling Melanie, I just got back from a conference that I was at yesterday. And in one of the speaker emails they sent, which is, again, really good practice, they said, make sure your captions are on for all your presentations. They also had sign language interpreters who would come in to support individuals as well, but they wanted to make a statement about accessibility being so critical. And Naomi and I do the same thing when we run our conferences. We tell people, you have this in your computer, please turn it on to make sure it's readily available for participants. And again, it's one of those great examples of assistive technology is designed for people who need it as a support. Then it also becomes a support for everyone in the room. And every one of us, I'm sure, has done this, whether we need captions or not. I'm sure at one point or another, we have zoned out of a meeting or presentation. I'd like to think you probably did it once now, and that's okay, because the text is there if you want to look back up and say, oh, what is Mike talking about now? Oh, he's talking about this because it's up on the screen. Or perhaps I look down to write something and I've kind of tuned out a bit. And then when I look up, it helps me re-engage with the conversation, helps me re-engage with the information. So these things can be very powerful for people in the environments that we have them in. Some other examples. So we're moving from things that are built in to now things that are other examples of tools. Naomi, you jumping in?
Yes, just
Jump
for
in.
a second, because there was a question about
Please.
the jitterbug, and they wanted to know if there was captions available for the jitterbug, and I have no idea. I say I would need to research it.
Yeah, I agree. That's a great question. I don't know the answer either. I don't even know enough to even give an idea of an answer at this point. The person who asked, send Naomi or myself a direct message in the chat, and we'll with your information, and we'll figure it out and we'll get back to you. That's really a good question.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, I would say check, like, go to a phone store and look at the phone itself and see if it's there.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. If you can get one of those phones and you can explore, hopefully if it has that support, it would be listed on the website that sells that equipment. And so that would be something to look at as well. Yeah, that's really great.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. You want to go through this slide while you're popped on with your mic?
No, you got it. You're doing great.
You're so funny. So some of this other stuff, oh, Naomi's making me laugh. That's good. Some of this other stuff that we have, again, these are technology tools that are very, focused to individuals with who are deaf or hard of hearing. And so these are specific tools we might purchase, whether they are alerting tools, like some of the tools along the top. And the top left of our screen shows a device that is listening for sound in your environment and then announcing it through some kind of display. So the picture on the top left, it sits on your stand, and it looks like an alarm clock, but it has a large screen. And on the screen right now, it says door. So it heard a knock or it heard a ring of a doorbell, and it's giving you a visual cue that something has happened in the environment. Some sound has happened in the environment. You might have fire alarm lights that have also a strobe effect, or some kind of light to signal that something is happening. And so we think about a lot of these supports, whether it's environmental sound that are being given to you as a visual, whether it is tools that you might use to help amplify the sound in an environment for yourself. So on the left-hand side of our screen, there's a personal amplifier tool. And so a speaker could wear a microphone, and you as a receiver of that information would wear a headset that you could then control the amplification to help you if the sound was too low or it was perhaps even too noisy in a situation, in an environment. So thinking about that, it's not always about sound being low. It could be about too much sound coming to you. Again, I was on a plane last night or this morning, and I put in my noise canceling headphones. I didn't even put anything on my phone. I just put the noise canceling headphones in. So it just deadened the sound in the plane as I was coming home. And so using some of those tools for yourself to find a balance in the room between sound and what you're listening to and the potential noise behind it. And so we have a couple other things on the side. We have interesting on the top right corner, there is a picture of a person wearing a mask, but the mask has a clear cutout in front of the person's mouth. So if I need lip reading, now I can see that person's mouth moving, and suddenly I have that support. So when a mask is in place, that gives me that option for additional support. There's a picture in the center of the screen that is a screenshot from an app that is a sign language app. Type in the name of a word or type in a word you want, and it will show you the sign. So if you need that level of support, you could certainly have it. So there are a lot of different options that are there. Some of these are in our lending center, others might not be, and we might connect you to another resource. The name of the app, Lisa, I was afraid someone's going to say that, and I'm hoping that Naomi jumps in. I'm going to look and see if she's got it in here.
What was the question? I'm sorry, I was typing an answer.
The name of that app, Naomi, that the in the center with the person where you type the word and it shows you the sign.
Oh, it's actually, if you type, click on the little person.
Oh, is it going to take me there?
Yes, it would
Okay,
take
well,
you there.
Well, there you go, Lisa, look at that. And Julie says hand talk.
I mean, there could be a couple of other ones too.
Yeah, this will give you a whole handful of, so the ASL translator, N touch. I'll show you some more. There's Sign for Me is the name of that one. So there you go, $10. Which is always funny to me now, because we're in a time with technology where people are like, wow, $10 is kind of a lot, right? But it's not in the context of some of these other things where, at one point we might have been talking about hundreds and hundreds of dollars for tools, and now we see a $9 app and you're like, I don't know, $9. But yeah, that's where we're at now with technology, so that's okay.
Go back to the other slide just for 1 second.
Go ahead. This one?
If people click on these icons, if you have it, they would take you to other places to go more into detail about what they are.
Perfect. So again, this is a whole idea of getting the slides, because any of these slides, and I always forget we even do that too, click the picture and it should send you somewhere and give you some additional information, which is so important. You know, again, these are snapshots of tools. Here's one. It's interesting. I can't find new information about this, and I'm curious where this is at. But this was shown a couple years back as an idea, a prototype for an app that would use augmented reality through your phone to allow you to instantly translate sign language, either translate from sign or translate into sign. And it would use the camera of your phone. And then what would happen is if I was communicating with a sign language user and I don't know sign, I could simply speak the word into my phone and that person would be holding their phone up and would see the sign superimposed over me in front of them. Yeah, Tricia, that's such a great, I think it's MIT. I did link to the article. It's MIT or NYU is something like that. And I don't know if there's updates either. I couldn't find a new article about it.
Yeah, I don't think
I
there
love the
are.
idea of it though. What's that, Naomi?
Yeah, I don't think they are because I was looking for that too. I
Yeah.
think they just kind of like just, you know, still in that testing.
It could be in a process still. I know that this was designed by students as part of a project, and I wonder if they're just kind of still working through the different iterations of it. But what I like about this is not necessarily knowing the title and the app itself, but the idea behind it. And as our technology continues to evolve and become more powerful, these are the kinds of things we can start thinking about that would use these kinds of mixed reality supports to give us access to information. So I'm really excited about this. This kind of thing is interesting to me because it shows potential of where we could go with these tools. It's always great. All right, so now look at that. I said to you it was a 45-minute webinar. We're 43 minutes in, and we'll get to some brainstorming real fast, or we'll have you guys chat if you'd like. If you want to share a situation or a question you might have, we can try to work through it. The beauty of this is that we are smarter together. So I'm excited to have everyone put their thinking caps on, the 70 of us that are in here, to come through and think about some things that we might be able to do to support individuals. So we have that. We do have a couple scenarios that we came up with if you want to give some ideas for this. So I'll read this one to you. And if you have an idea, you can drop it in the chat. You can ask to have your mic
Actually,
turned on.
before we get to it, we
Yeah.
have a couple of questions for you.
Oh, go ahead. For
And
us,
the
Naomi. Don't
questions
say
and
me. It's
answers.
us.
For us,
Let's hear them.
deaf and hard of hearing people will benefit tremendously from self-driving courses AT. Are you working on this, or can you tell me who does? Do you think you will ever have this info?
Well, I think that's really interesting, Joan.
Yeah.
I think that idea of a self-driving car as AT is certainly being discussed in the AT field as an option for many different types of users. And so I think you are seeing that. I was just at a conference a few weeks back where an individual with a disability was sharing their thought that they couldn't wait for a self-driving car because they are unable to get a license due to a physical disability. They're just not able to. And they had said, well, I can't wait for one of those cars. I'll be the first in line, as I believe what they said as we were talking, because of how powerful that can be. And of course, so, you know, Joan, you're thinking of it from that perspective of an individual who's deaf or hard of hearing. Of course, that would certainly meet their needs, as it would for an individual who's visually impaired or blind or a physical disability, intellectual disability. We could have any number of reasons. I think, like anything else, my guess, Joan, and maybe Naomi has a different guess, but here's my guess. As with all technology innovations, there will be first adopters. This technology will go through a cycle of people starting to use it, and then we'll see the assistive technology application of it. It usually happens about a year behind the curve of when something comes out. People start to think about, well, oh, wouldn't this also be great for individuals with disabilities? And I don't mean people in the field thinking about it a year later. I mean, by the time word makes its way to the people who design these tools, they start to think of, oh, this could also be a benefit for people with disabilities. And unfortunately, I think that's a cycle that we'll continue to see. As someone who worked for a company once told me, we are in the market of selling things to the most people as possible. So that's where we're going to go first. It's like, okay, that's incredibly jaded, but okay, I get it, I suppose. What it means is that we as professionals and individuals who have this focus, we need to be loud in our pursuit of access to these things. But I think that's really important. Yeah, so Richard's talking about an app for hearing. So like an amplifying app, because he has trouble hearing sometimes, or something to amplify your voice. There are voice amplifiers that someone would wear. And there are also voice amplification apps that you could use with an individual as well. So there are many different kinds of those things out there about tools. I don't know the exact names of them, Richard, but again, I'll give you the same suggestion we gave before. If you drop your contact info in the chat, we can certainly follow up with you and send you some exact apps that might work for that.
And also tell us what device, if it's Android,
Yes.
iPad, because they're different for both.
Yeah, it's a great point. When we think back to our set slide, the set framework slide, they're so important because those are the questions we need to know. We need to have answers to in order to give you the best solutions. And Melanie said in the beginning, and she's so good at saying this in the beginning, that we give broad information. They go, Richard dropped it in there, so that's perfect. Now we know. So we're talking about an Android phone. It's easy to give broad solutions. It's very hard at times to give very specialized solutions because there are so many factors. And that's why it's easier to just say to you, there are things out there. Let's have a conversation about what those are and how they could work for you. So yeah, that's awesome. Richard, we'll connect. If you send something to in the chat, if you can direct message in the chat to Naomi or myself with your contact information, we'll connect with you. So we have here the scenario. Robbie is an assistant manager for an apartment complex and is often called to emergencies, but can't hear the phone. Any suggestions for him so he doesn't lose his position? So what do we think? We've seen some of these things in that previous slide with some of these other devices in it. So we could have something that Robbie could put on his desk that announced that a phone was ringing. He could also, perhaps if there's emergencies in his apartment complex, maybe as a best practice, the people in the apartment complex simply text him instead of calling him. Maybe that's a strategy. And I like that. I like the idea of something like that because that is just changing a process and using the tools you already have. Anytime we put more technology in a situation, our goal is to always make the situation better. And I'll be the first to tell you, adding more technology does not make every situation better. It just adds more technology to some things. So it's important to think about what is the task at hand. In this case, it's Robbie needing to respond to emergency calls, but not always hearing them. That is the task. And so what do we do? What do we look at as far as tools? Could it be some kind of visual? Having his phone vibrate? Naomi puts in the chat, having his phone or his watch vibrate. Again, giving me some kind of physical alert that something is happening. And I think those are great ideas. That idea of thinking about what can I use? Right? And anytime there's a situation with a technology support, I feel like my first go-to always is just look around me in the first couple feet around me. And we all know, all of you right now, we can look down on our desk or wherever you're sitting right now. Your phone is within 3 feet of you. I feel like that's a pretty confident bet that most of your phones are within 3 feet of you. So that feels like a good place to start because it's right there anyway. And Robbie may already use these strategies for other things, because if he's not able to hear the phone, he might already have a strategy in place. Great example of asking the individual what they're currently doing. And that's part of our question process. That's part of our gathering of information is, hey, what do you do now? You must answer the phone now, or you must have some way that you do that. What does that look like to you? And then when someone shares that with you, kind of a follow-up is, okay, well then why won't that work here? Is something else happening that maybe you could not use your system that you're currently using? Can the phone be linked to a light so that it flashes or blinks when a call comes in? That's a great question, Mary. Yes.
Yes.
It could. Whether that's a physical phone on his desk or a cell phone. You can have your smartphone flash the flashlight when your phone is ringing. So it gives you a visual cue. Sorry, Marguerite, Ketty, I just stole your thunder in the chat there. A visual cue, right? Somehow the light blinks. Yeah, those are awesome. Those are the kind of things we start to think of, is that what is a solution that we can fathom putting in place for this? And then what is the technology that lets us do that? Do we have it already, or do we have to go to it? Awesome points. I love it. You guys are experts. Look at this. You're AT specialists already. You're experts already. Here's another scenario. One more, and then we'll take a little questions if we have any, and then we'll wrap ourselves up. So here's Haley. Haley's a college student who lives in the dorm and is concerned if there is an emergency such as a fire, she would not be able to hear the alarm when it goes off. Any suggestions on how to make the dorm a safe place for Haley? It kind of is similar suggestions to what we just heard with Robbie in the previous. What's his name? Robbie? I totally forgot his name already. Yeah, Robbie. Is there some kind of visual cue? Does the fire alarm have a visual cue already? Does it have a strobe light or just a light? Interesting thing about a strobe light, where some have strobe lights, and that might be an impact. That might impact someone negatively. This conversation just came up on an assistive technology list that I'm on, because someone was going to, I believe, their place of employment, and it was not a hearing concern, but it was a seizure concern. And so the concern was, when the alarm goes off, would the strobe light cause a seizure? And so that was the conversation. And so this is a really good example of a solution for one may be detrimental to somebody else. And how do we find a balance there? That's what the question was on the list, is where's our balance, or what's a strategy we can use to make sure that everyone gets the support they need without it being detrimental to somebody else. And so for somebody like Haley in this situation, I would say, a good place to start would be something that is a visual cue for that alarm. And so thinking about those, I don't know if anybody else has other suggestions. Naomi, you got any other suggestions?
I do, because some alarms actually submit an odor that actually wakes people up.
Okay.
And that could be a solution. The really scary thing about this scenario, if the person is a sound sleeper, is the lights, is the odor, is that going to be enough? And how do you test that? Yeah.
And then I know we could look to things that will shake. And so there are bed shakers
that you could connect to the smoke alarm too.
Yeah, and so they would catch that as well. Mary S. in the chat, a really good question. Does the ADA address these modifications in public accommodations? It does. And it does talk about this idea of alarms with visual cues. I think that's a really good question, Mary. I think there are some instances though where a visual cue may be set to do something. It is visually cueing you because it might strobe, but that impacts someone else. And then so are those two things thought of, and an individual or an organization might say, well, we've done what we're supposed to do because we have a fire alarm and it has a light and we're good. And so then it becomes a conversation of, well, okay, yes, you did, but you didn't at the same time. And so those become conversations or discussions, I guess I should say. Hi, Melanie. I saw whenever I see Melanie come on, I get I'm like, all right, we must be close to one.
No, listen, I will never rush you both. If you have the time, we have the time. But Mike and Naomi, can you talk a little bit about smartwatches? Right, you're speaking about, right, if a fire alarm, for example, went off, right, are there devices that can connect to someone's smartwatch, and if they're sleeping, have that smartwatch, vibrate intensely, and anything such as that would be of assistance?
Yeah, again, that would be a straight out feature of that smartwatch. I mean, if anybody who has a smartwatch now, you know that if you get notifications on your device, what happens? The watch vibrates if you've had it set to do that. And you could do that same thing if you have some of these features on your phone where you want it to alert you when some noise is happening in the environment. One of those options could be send me a notification, which would then trigger the watch to vibrate and trigger your phone to vibrate, and those kinds of things. So yeah, I think it's all about, it goes back to, Melanie, it's a perfect example of our conversation before. What do you need to do? What do you have already? And then do you need something else? Because a lot of times we're just not even creatively using the features of the things we have. It's always funny in our conversations how I find a way to work it back to built-in accessibility features, but I feel like it's such an easy start, because all these other things are great, but do you have it already? You might be able to resolve your situation like right now if you had that on your phone and you could turn it on. And so yes, the very long answer to your question was, yeah, I think the notifications piece would vibrate. And like Naomi said, would that person recognize it if they're in a situation, if they're sleeping? Sure. I mean, I'm pretty sure my phone vibrates all day, all night long while I'm sleeping as I get email, and I don't hear it after a certain point. And I don't know that I would feel my watch after a certain point, but that's just a testament to my sleeping ability, I guess.
Can you set these smart watches to vibrate in different modes?
You can set so that's under the haptics setting within the accessibility, and I think you can. And of course, my watch is dead now because it wasn't charged, so I don't have it in front of me. But I believe you can through the settings, through the accessibility that's in the watch.
So you can make it more intense for something.
Exactly. Yeah, you can adjust the intensity of the vibration. Of course, that's all going to impact how long it lasts on a charge. But yeah, you could.
Okay.
Good solution.
Naomi, I know as always you're super active in the chat and the Q&A option of the Zoom. Were there any additional questions that you had for yourself and Mike to address?
No, I think we got them all.
Yeah, I like it. We got them as we went, which was awesome. Awesome. Well, everyone, we've done it. I'm gonna stop us before Melanie stops us at 1. It's 12:59. I'm like, oh, I did it. We snuck in right under the hour. As you go through, we have some additional resources at the end of the slides, and those will just take you out to links to other organizations around that can give you some support. And then don't forget, there are the slides. One more time, I think, yes, the registration link. Melanie just dropped one in the chat, which is awesome. So we have the slides link, and we thank you for your time today. And there's a resource for us. If you need to reach out to us, feel free. We're around. We'd love to help you with anything. We love to chat about tech, so we're always game.
Perfect. So I did actually just drop 2 additional messages in the chat section. As everyone will hopefully be able to access. The first one that I dropped about a minute ago was for an upcoming presentation that we are doing in January, specific to an app called This Is Me, and it's a self-advocacy and transition planning app. You could click on that link to find out more about that presentation and the presenters. And we also have 2 additional sessions scheduled under the same registration link that you used for this session with Mike and Naomi. Upcoming topics, December is going to be assistive tech for medication. Super excited about that one. I think that's perfect, right? A perfect topic across the lifespan. And then assistive tech for physical mobility also. So please feel free to use the last message that I dropped into the chat section. Click that link and you can register for both sessions under one registration for your convenience. We will have another link separate for additional sessions that we have coming up for 2023 with Mike and Naomi. So we will make sure to send that out to you in the upcoming new year. So for everyone who has joined us today, thank you as always. As we're preparing to say our goodbyes for today, you're going to see that a quick survey is going to pop up on your screen. We encourage you to take that. It might take 30 seconds to do so. It's the information that you provide us that really allows us to plan for future sessions that's going to be relevant for the needs of our community. So Mike, Naomi, as always, thank you so much. We look forward to next month's conversation. And for everyone who took the time to join us today and participate in today's chat, thank you again for sharing your resources.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye, Mike. Bye, Naomi. Be well,
Bye.
everyone. Thank you.
Thanks, Melanie.
Thanks.